Yo, what is going on? Thank you so much for joining in. Today, we are going to be going to my very first TBR here on the channel. And for those who do not know what TBR stands for, that stands for To Be Read. Not the color red? Well, I'm going to read in the month of September. And that month is coming up here pretty soon. So, I just wanted to show you guys, what I got currently on my list or my backlog that I'm planning on reading. So without further ado, let's just jump into the first book, okay? First book is right here. We got Dune Messiah. So Dune Messiah, this is actually the sequel to Dune. So book number 2. And as you can see, it's not that big, right? I think it's around 300 pages. Okay, this particular copy is only 260 pages right here. So I don't think this one should take me too long to get into. And I just finished Dune maybe a couple weeks ago, or even maybe less than that. And I read Dune Messiah and Children of Dune about a year ago, so it's been a while since I've actually read or really remember what happened in Dune Messiah. I do remember though that this book, at least in the community, that this is sometimes referred to as like the rotten egg of the Dune saga, because we're coming off of Dune, which is just so massive in terms of its popularity, and there's definitely a shift. I remember there being a big shift in terms of the overall tone within Dune Messiah, in terms of just maybe being less action-packed. I do remember there are some crazy action scenes in the book. I just don't remember exactly when. But not a very long read at all. Only about 260 pages, so I don't think this one should really take me that long to get into. Yeah, when we're looking at Dune here in Goodreads, just in terms of the ratings on Goodreads, Dune came out at a 4.26 of over 1 million reviews, right? Dune Messiah only has 250,000 reviews, so 1 million less than Dune itself, and that rating is sitting at 3.89. So obviously there is some sort of a gap in between the way people perceive Dune Messiah compared to Dune. But I do remember reading it, and I remember enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the Dune world and the Dune universe. I just remember this one being a lot more philosophical in terms of the overall tones and the in-depth inner dialogue within Paul especially. But looking forward to this one for sure, and maybe I'll do a video on this book as well in the coming weeks, just because I know there's a preconceived notion on this book just not performing or not standing up to the same par as Dune, which might be the case. I just want to look into it a little bit further and just explore it and just really see how does this less than 300 page book fit into the Dune world or the Dune universe, and just read it a little bit more. Also, I know Dune Part 2 was delayed, and I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that Denis Villeneuve said that if Dune Part 2 performed pretty well in terms of being at the box office, we might get an adaptation of Dune Messiah, in that case being a trilogy. It'd be interesting to see though how he would adapt less than 300 pages into a full-fledged movie, but I know it's possible. Look at The Hobbit. The Hobbit was like around the 300 page mark, and that became 3 movies somehow. So yeah, that's my first read, Dune Messiah. Looking forward to reading this one, getting into it. And book number 2. This one's a little bit chunkier. Can you tell what it is already? It's Rhythm of War. So for those who do not know, this is a part of the Stormlight Archive series. This is book number 4, and as you can see, it's a pretty chunky book. Pretty chunky. I think it's over 1,200 pages. 1,225 pages. So this book is massive. I've never actually read this one just yet. I've only made it up to Oathbringer, which is book 3 over there. I remember it just took forever to get through it, but I am finally looking forward to getting back into the Stormlight Archive universe. I actually just did a reread of books 1 through 3 because I forgot what happened, and it's been a couple years, so I said, you know what, I also want to reread it again, and those 3 books have been a great experience. So I have read online or seen some videos on Rhythm of War not necessarily being everyone's favorite in the Stormlight Archive series, but still an enjoyable experience. Yeah, and looking at this one too on Goodreads, Looking at the rating, it's a 4.62 rating, so 4.62 out of 5 is pretty dang good. I mean, it has over 100,000 reviews, so you know that people are obviously enjoying the series. And also nominated for Best Fantasy in 2020. I mean, all looking really good. I just want to see how it compares to the other 3 books in the series. So, Way of Kings sits at a 4.67, which sounds about right to me, in my opinion. Words of Radiance, 4.76, so I can definitely see that. I remember really enjoying Words of Radiance a little bit more in The Way of Kings, just because there is some crazy jaw-dropping moments in that book. Oathbringer, that's the one that I'm about to finish. I have like 10% left, really. Only a few, like 100 pages or so in Oathbringer. And that's sitting at a 4.62, so still really high, just a little bit lower than Way of Kings. And then we get to Rhythm of War, 4.62. It's actually the same rating as Oathbringer, so overall, looking forward to it. Hopefully I enjoy it. I know it's going to take me a little bit to get through it, but that is book number 2. So the next 3 books I don't have physically on me. Maybe a couple days ago, I sent a question out to Bane Books, or the publisher Bane, on Twitter, asking what 3 books out of their entire catalog would they recommend in terms of getting a good sense on the books that they publish. And they didn't necessarily answer me directly, but they shared the tweet with their readers for them to answer me. And I got a ton of responses out of that, which was great. And a lot of books were thrown at me, but there was 3 in particular, at least 3 authors that stood out to me. That was just recommended time and time again. With that being said, I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper into the Bane Books world. Number 1 was a book called On Basilisk Station. This is a book I would probably not gravitate towards, even though I have never heard of it before. The cover is kind of different. It's thrown me off a little bit. And it's really because of this crazy looking cat. There's a cat on this cover that's just throwing me off. I don't even know if it is a cat. Those green eyes are sparkling at me for some reason, and it's just giving me a weird vibe. So when I'm looking at it here, at least in Goodreads, I mean the cover, it looks interesting. Again, that cat looks crazy. Looks like there's a female at the front in some sort of military uniform, holding the cat's paw. Looks like a big spaceship orbital ring in the background. So I'm definitely thinking this is in the sci-fi genre. And when I'm looking at the reviews too on Goodreads, it's sitting at a 4.13, which is pretty good, out of 45,000 ratings. 45,000, so that's a lot of people for a book I've never heard of. It looks like it's a part of a series too called Honor Harrington, with this being book number 1. And looking at the description too, it's pretty interesting. The sentence that really drew me was this one right here. The Aborigines of the system's only habitable planet are smoking homicide-inducing hallucinogens. What? So obviously, I'm intrigued. It's recommended so many times. I think it's around 400 pages. Yeah, 464 pages. So if it being recommended so many times, I'm just going to take a chance and check it out and see if it's good. And that is book number 3 that I want to get to in the month of September. And going down that same list in terms of Bane books, there's another one on there that I've never heard of, but it also intrigued me, and that was called Monster Hunter International. So the cover as well, it's very interesting looking. It looks like there's a patch right there that says MHI, which stands for Monster Hunter International. Looks like a gun, and maybe the red at the top is a symbol of blood, maybe? I'm not sure. But this book is by Larry Correia. It has 28,000 reviews, sitting at a 4.06. And this is a book I have not read before. And this one, the description of this one is also pretty interesting. It turns out that monsters are real. All things from myth, legend, and B-movies are out there, waiting in the shadows. Officially secret. Some of them are evil, some are just hungry. On the other side are the people who kill monsters for a living. Monster Hunter International is the premier eradication company in the business. And now Owen is their newest recruit. So right there, that gives me vibes of Men in Black. We have monsters, we have a company who eradicates monsters. This is another book that was recommended multiple times as being a go-to read within the Bane catalog. So let's see. That is book number 4. So that alone, those 4 books make up a pretty good page count, especially this guy right here. That's a big one. Dune Messiah shouldn't take me too long to get through, but if I do have time remaining in the month of September, the next book that I have on here, book number 5, is going to be Live Free or Die by John Ringo. This is another book or an author that was recommended multiple times in those Bane book responses. This looks like it's a part of a series called Troy Rising, with this being book number 1. This one has a little bit less of a review count. This one has about 9,000 reviews, sitting in at 4.17. It definitely has, at least the cover has, a very heavy sci-fi focus to it from what it looks like. Looks like there's a crazy spaceship battle in space. And there's also like a Roman looking helmet there sitting in the middle, so that's kind of interesting. And it somewhat looks like the Death Star sitting there in the background with that kind of orb looking thing. But I have no idea. But the first sentence looks kind of interesting in terms of the description. First contact was friendly. So I think that implies that it's not so friendly afterwards. When aliens trundled a gate to other worlds into the solar system, the world reacted with awe, hope, and fear. But the first aliens to come through, the Glotton, were peaceful traders, and the world breathed a sigh of relief. Until the Fire Nation attacked. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a part of it, but yeah, it's pretty intriguing. I have not heard of this book before or this author. I haven't read any of these authors within the Bane catalog, so I'm looking forward to exploring these books I would not usually gravitate towards. So that was book number 5. So yeah, that's the books I'm going to read in September. Let me know if you've read any of them and what your thoughts were below, especially on those Bane books. If you've read those and you had a good experience, I'm interested to see which of those 3 that you enjoyed the most. These are books that I would probably not pick up if it weren't for the multiple recommendations to me, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. And again, thank you so much for joining my September TBR in 2023. And just for staying this long, you've earned 1 XP token. Here you go. And before we leave, if you're not already subscribed, please do so. It would help me out a lot. I'd really appreciate it. And again, thank you so much. Have a good one.